Ni hao, wo jiao Jamie Andrews. I'm Jamie Andrews. I work at the British Library in the United Kingdom, and I lead on our cultural programming and our learning and education work.
Hello, my name's Michael Takeo Magruder. I'm an artist and researcher that works with digital technologies, and I've been an artist and researcher in residence with the British Library for the last 3 years.
Okay, so how do you like the city of Chongqing, and have you have a chance to look around or discover a little bit?
Yes, so actually we arrived I think less than 24 hours ago, so we haven't had a huge opportunity, but I'm really lucky. I've actually, it's my second time here in Chongqing. We were here earlier in the year with my colleague, and we were talking to the Consul General in Chongqing, the UK Consul General, and she was talking about the Smart Expo, and she suggested that we should come. So when I was here previously, I did have a couple of days to look around the city. It's beautiful. I think I love the contrast between the mountains and the river, those kind of eternal features of the city, and then the energy, the recent energy that the development and the expansion of the city has generated. So that mix of old and new I find really compelling, and although it's only my second time here, I think it's very much a city that I'm falling in love with, so yes.
As you may know, this year only the second time for Chongqing to host the Smart China Expo. So what's your feelings about the event so far?
I think the event is a very interesting mix of different technology suppliers and people that are actually innovating with technology. So, and I hope we've brought something interesting to the table to show people here, since we are using old historic collections and culture, but brought into the digital age and showing what we can do with that. But yes, a very interesting mix of people here.
Okay. I think I have met with Jamie in the Chongqing Library for the last event. Yes. You went there. So you are the director of the Department of Culture and Education in British Library. So can you tell us more about that? What are you involved in this department recently?
Yes, so, and I do now remember when we met previously in Chongqing, I think it was earlier this year, wasn't it? So yeah, the work that my teams do is really about taking what's at the heart of the British Library, which are our collections, and we have vast collections, massive collections. We think we've got around 170 million objects, and we need to make sense of those objects for people. We need to help explain those objects to people. We need to share those objects with people, and that's really what my teams do. They work on the learning side with young people and learners of all ages, but especially with school students, with families with young children, and with older children as well. And then on the culture side, it's really about finding memorable cultural experiences for our audiences, and that can be an exhibition, it can be a concert, it can be a spoken word event, it can be a performance, and those are the kind of things that we do in London, where our principal building is, but we increasingly do it across the country, across the United Kingdom, and indeed across the world. And recently we've been bringing some of our treasures to China through a number of exhibitions, which is a great way to connect with Chinese audiences, but we've also been connecting through our cultural work with Chinese audiences online. We're very active on WeChat and Weibo. I hope that people listening to this will follow us on WeChat and Weibo and be able to find out more about what we do.
I just have a question for Michael, because I've heard that you are involved with the project Imaginary Cities, right?
Yes.
And I think that's a project that you put the artworks into the digital collection. Am I right?
Yes, the Imaginary Cities project, what it does is it takes old Victorian, so 18th, 19th century maps of old cities, and we even have one of Chongqing. Then these are from the 1 million images from Scan Books collection, which is a very famous collection from British Library. And I take that in combination with people's interaction with those digital collection items, and it's those two materials that I use to then create these fantastical contemporary digital cities. So in the British Pavilion, you will see two pieces, one which is based on an old London map and one which is based on an old map of Chongqing. That's a VR piece.
So is that project like related to the virtual reality or VR? Is the technology based, right?
Yes, it is technology based, but for as much as it uses technology, it cannot exist without people's interactions with the digital collection item. So my interest as an artist is looking at this notion of we have had a long history of collecting things that are analog. Those have moved into the digital space. And once they're in the digital space, what new possibilities arrive? So for me, I think because people can interact with the digital collection, they can add into it, traces of themselves are left behind in metadata. This allows the collection to become a living collection. And as an artist, I can tap into that sort of living vitality and bring that into the artwork. So with the piece, the VR piece that is based on the Chongqing map, it's a reimagining of the city, and it's one that changes every day. And its change every day is due to people's interaction with the British Library's collection item.
Sounds really cool. I'm not sure if the maps can recognize them and creating a virtual urban environment. Is that right?
The project could embrace more than maps, but I chose to stick with this notion of maps in cities because it is something that is interesting to us, has always been, and when I say us, I mean people, and it's part of our environment, and this sort of blending and the sort of the living environment and a living city and sort of interactions with that. So for me, that's something that just artistically made sense to do, to actually base it on this notion of cities. So I also was thinking when I was originally creating the project, I was thinking about Italo Calvino's very famous book, Invisible Cities. So these notion of cities that exist in our mind and these sort of dream spaces and narratives, which again, if you think about that in relation to, say, smart cities and this notion of an always changing city and the dynamicism of a city, it's something that really makes sense.
Thank you. It's really like just as a name, imaginary cities, which was a really brilliant idea to create such a project. And what is the 1 million scanned image program?
So it's a few years ago, we worked with Microsoft to digitize vast quantities of our printed books, especially from the 19th century. And we worked with them to digitize those books, and we ended up with around 25 million pages of books, which is a vast quantity. And what we wanted to do was to be able to share those 25 million pages with everyone and anyone. And we also wanted to use machine learning tools to begin to extract certain elements of those pages. Now they've already had over 1 billion views, and there's been 17 million tags. People have tagged those images, but we've also automatically managed to extract the images, take all the images, all the pictures out of those 25 million pages, and we put them in an online image sharing platform called Flickr. And once they were on there, we just let people, Flickr, exactly, yeah, we just let people discover those images. We let those we let people be inspired by those images, and out of those images all sorts of different artistic and creative opportunities emerged. One of them was exactly what Michael's been talking about with his Imaginary Cities project, and that's been a major project, a major exhibition for us. But there have been all sorts of other uses, many of them unexpected. We had an installation that was created and that was installed in the desert in Nevada in the United States based on the images that we'd put online. We recently found a band, a music band, an indie band from Malaysia, We didn't know them at all, but they found us, they found the images, and they used those images to create what ended up actually being an award-winning video for one of their songs, one of their pop songs, derived entirely from the images we'd put online. And I mean, with Michael it's slightly different. We've worked together for a number of years. Michael's been an artist in residence. We were very much talking to each other as that project developed. And that's wonderful because you get to talk, you get to exchange ideas. But there's something kind of wonderful and special as well when you just discover that someone has taken those images and done something amazing that you never knew about until you saw the finished article. And that surprise, that element of chance even, has been at the heart of that project. But really for us, it just shows the crucial mission. If there's one thing we need to do as the British Library, and of course there's many things we need to do, but if there's one thing we need to do, it's to digitise our collections, because as long as they're still only physical, there's limitations on what you can do, there's limitations on how people can access them. But once they're digitised, you can let them go out in the world and all sorts of things can happen, including, as I said, things you never ever imagined. And that's at the heart of that project, and it's also really at the heart of what we're doing beyond that with our collections.
Okay. So why, do you have any information, or do you have any relation with Chongqing? Why do you choose Chongqing to come in to explore?
So shall I start with that one? I mentioned when we met last time, we were in Chongqing in a few months ago, maybe earlier this year, and we were doing some talks, we were doing some professional exchanges, some meetings with libraries and galleries and museums here. And as part of that, we of course connected with our Consul General, Cecile El Beledi, who's been a great friend of ours, a great supporter of ours, and we were talking. Probably having a very similar conversation to the one we're just having, talking about our digital ambitions, talking about the scale of our collections, but also the scale of the opportunities once you start to digitise our collections. And I know at that time she and her team were thinking about the Smart China Expo that was coming up, the UK, one of the countries of honour, of course, and she was thinking about the UK Pavilion and how that UK Pavilion could be made to seem rather unique and singular and just that bit more special than perhaps any of the other pavilions by mixing business, commerce with creativity, with art. And from that really came the idea of bringing some of Michael's work over to the pavilion to enhance and enrich the pavilion. And it felt that this was, from what we understand, Smart China Expo, it's the big digital moment when people from across China and across the world are coming together. And so for us, the opportunity to be working with the Consul General, to be part of the pavilion, surrounded by all these hundreds, probably thousands of other creative organisations, creative companies, was too good an opportunity to miss.
Okay. So this year marks the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. So I'm just wondering if you guys have any most impression of China, of any achievements or any outcomes during this 70 years.
Start that one. I mean, I think 70 years is clearly an incredibly important moment for China. Of course, what we're very conscious of is that our relationship, the UK with China, goes back so much further. I know that the first Consulate General here in Chongqing was established in 1890. So the UK has had a very formal presence here for over 100 years. And of course at the British Library, a lot of our international collections tell the story of the relationship between the UK and China that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. Some of our greatest treasures are collections that tell the story of that rich interplay between the UK and China. So of course this is an incredibly important year, and in terms of the achievements of China, I think the Smart China Expo is a very interesting way of showcasing not only the achievements of China in the digital space, but actually the achievements digitally when people work together across boundaries, when they collaborate. So clearly this is an important moment, but actually we focus just as much on that even longer history.